right, man. First off, thank you and you, who is off air, for coming in today,
Sure.
making the trip up here. I'm glad both of you guys moved to Texas, and we're kind of doing a 2-podcast day here, but we're gonna focus on individuals right now. And I'm not gonna try to pronounce the name right now.
Which one? My first name?
No, the brand.
The brand even? Brand is a little easier than my first name.
I do agree. And so before you say it, though, let me just give you my point. Let me tell everybody why. I feel like my education allows me to sound out things, and I say it in a way that I think like Americans would say it, like sound it out. You know what I mean? So how do you say it and go?
I'm sure you ask different people that pronounce it different ways. I just call it Kodlin USA.
Kodlin?
Yeah.
So cod instead of code. I
wouldn't
don't know
say
why I
code.
like to say code. Does that change like the meaning of it if you say it that way?
It could, I guess. It depends on the language.
Try to shove that thing right up so it's
Oh,
closer.
yeah.
Yeah, just pull the arm. Yeah.
This guy?
Yeah. Sometimes you got to overdo it and let it rest back.
Like that?
Yeah.
There you go.
But, man, I've actually been following, I guess, the mother page. Fred, right? Is that the main guy behind the whole thing?
Fred is the main guy behind the whole thing in Europe. He started
Okay.
Kodlin in Germany in 84.
84.
And then the main guys behind Kodlin USA is his son Len Kodlin and myself. We own the company.
Nice. I've been a fan of the bikes that they've been building in Germany for years. The paintwork's always top notch. I think there was like eras of like, I would say kind of big wheels. I would say some big wheel stuff back in the day. I saw some pretty cool ones that you guys had done, and then you'd always tackled bikes that. One of my favorite ones that y'all had done, and I think maybe you guys did this one, the American side, was the BMW a couple years ago.
No, that was Germany too.
That was Germany?
So Germany is a lot about bike building, and you know it goes, like I said, it goes back to 84. Is when Fred started the company in Europe, and he became the number one bike builder in Europe. Period. Right. Whatever you heard or read, otherwise,
Yeah.
Kodlin in Europe is associated with Harley Davidson and custom bike building. Period. Fred and I used to be friends in Europe. I used to run Custom Chrome Europe when Custom Chrome was like the Coca-Cola in the industry.
Yeah.
This is like late 90s. They picked me to build their European presence. And Fred Kodlin Motorcycles became one of our largest customers, but also a supplier. And he would build custom bikes for the business. So he would build like a catalog cover bike. Back in the day, they were kit bikes. Remember kit bikes, right?
You could almost buy everything out of the custom chrome. I want this style, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is when the custom bike building was at its prime, both in the US and in Europe. And Custom Chrome Europe, we would have all the engine brands. We would have RevTech, of course, our house brand, but we would have a great partnership with S&S. We would be exclusive as TP Engineering, and then what we would do is we would make all that stuff legal, right? Before CARB and EPA became an issue here.
Yeah.
This shit was going on in Europe,
Oh.
like on steroids. Right.
Damn.
You had to approve the frames. You had to get emission approval on engines, all those components, brake parts, you name it.
Why do you think it was
handlebars.
so harsh out there?
Well, I guess because the Germans came up with the idea, right? We're we'll have things in a box where we can say these are the rules, and that's how you stick to them.
Oh, okay.
But it's all the emissions, all the compliance.
Actually,
testing
how
is
does
really
that
hard
work?
over there.
With all this the countries over there, does there become like one kind of umbrella encompassing type regulation that works on all the countries the way we have in the States, or does it become like individually as you cross borders, it's different rules and regulations?
It's kind of both, right?
Okay.
So you have everything that's called EC approval, that's like lighting, it's emissions, that comes from the European Union. But then there's also standards for different countries. Germany is very strict. Germany, Austria, Switzerland, kind of the Central European countries. They're really strict, and they got TÜV, probably heard about that. That's where testing of frames and things become very relevant. But then there's still countries out there that don't really care, right? Especially once you get really up north to Sweden. Even the UK is not that strict. But my experience back is like what I said earlier, is in the 90s and early 2000s. Nowadays, it's like nearly impossible to build a custom bike and to ride it legally on the street. It's getting really, really hard over there. But back to Fred Kodler, that's how we connected. So we would have the components. He would put his individual parts on it. We teamed up a lot on building these bikes.
Nice.
There were other brands that we teamed up with. Hardcore Cycles, Marcus Waltz, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Hardcore would always have those like single-sided swing arm like V-rods and stuff, which the V-rod never took off here in America the way, but like when you would see those pictures of the Hardcore ones, you'd be like, man, that's pretty badass. But it never seemed to really take off here, though.
No, I think that especially the Germans had a special relationship with the V-rod because I think Porsche developed the engine with Harley back in the day. Marcus, he was famous for his drag style bikes. There were a lot of V-rods. There were a lot of stuff that was different, but that's where the brand started. That's where Kodlin started, was in Europe.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure we're going to touch on that later, how we ended up doing it in the US.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated because I've heard so much and done so many podcasts with so many people that have been a part of the 90s industry culture that was going around, like you said, the custom chrome, and how that was like kind of the top dog and how it's kind of shifted now, or actually custom chrome isn't around anymore. But yeah, when it comes to Europe, like I never even considered like the things that were going on there in the 90s and how the culture of custom motorcycle building was being played out over there, if that makes sense,
Yeah, no, if you haven't lived through it, back then there was no Instagram and no social media, right? In early days, there wasn't even really like an internet, right? But most of the trends really started in the US, and then they ended up in Europe with like 2-year delay. But there's also some trends that started over there in Europe, Germany, Italy. There was like, if you look at Scandinavia, there was Swedish shoppers.
Swedish shoppers,
right?
yeah.
So some of the stuff went the other way.
Yeah.
Right? But the bottom line is, however we look at this thing, the core of the culture, right, started in the U.S. And there's a generation, that were there in the 80s, I guess, and early 90s that was inspired by Easy Riders, and there was, different inspirations down the road, but it all started here. There's no question about that.
Yeah, when you think about styles of like air quotes choppers, the different styles in different parts of the country were fit to ride the different types of styles of terrain and traffic and shit like that. You know what I mean? So when you're out in California, you got really tight bikes for lane splitting, things like that. You get up in Frisco, you got taller stuff.
Yeah.
You get out here, you have the D-rake, or the Midwest, you got the D-rake, tall bikes. Like a lot of different styles kind of fit the I guess not the terrain, but like just the areas, right? So I wonder if that also works because you mentioned like Swedish style choppers, which is a whole style that almost kind of gets into the D-rake look a little bit, the high and tight and stuff like that. I wonder how much that is out there. Like, does London have a style of bike? Does Italy have a style of bike? And
you have a little bit of that, but I wouldn't call it the London style.
Okay.
But you definitely have there's a lot of German bike builders that inspired a lot of others, and there's a lot of trends that came from that. There's South Europeans. Let's put that into a category,
Okay.
right? And then there's kind of things that happen in the North. Eastern Europe played a role at one point. But we have a lot of that going on, and then it's all as Europe is obviously the whole of Europe with so many countries and so many different languages, cultures. I mean, you can fit it into the US a few times, right? So you look at that and you see how all those different cultures inspired some of the custom bike building. I'm sure once you really dive into it, it's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting.
I'm a recent lover of Porsches. I've just, basically just got turned on by them here recently. Always known they existed, obviously, but like just really started to fall in love with like the design and the aesthetics of the thing, of the machines, the cars, and how they've kind of carried a lineage their entire existence. Not like one day they look like this and then the next day they look like this. They've just kind of been a refining of itself.
Yep.
The kind of question I guess I'm kind of trying to ask is like the culture of Germans, like being creative in that kind of way of like precision and making like so many great car companies from there. BMW, obviously that's a big motorcycle thing now too, right? So like, is that something that I think is like just in the people of Germany, you know what I'm saying? Or is it more culturally that you kind of get drawn to be into things like that, or the design? And
it's a good question.
I did a shitty job asking the question, but
but I know where you're getting to that.
Yeah.
I think Germans just like to make the best shit.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up. And engineering is so deeply rooted into the culture. Sometimes they over-engineer stuff too. But
trust me, we've worked on cars.
yeah. That's why this stuff works.
Yeah.
To me, and I think that kind of leads us later into what Kodlin USA is about.
Yeah.
I like kind of taking the best of all worlds, right? You got really good stuff coming from Europe, particularly Germany in our case. Then you got all this cool stuff going on in the US, right? And we just like to blend all this stuff together. This is where Len Kodlin, my business partner, where he's so great at is he has such an eye for all that and bringing all this together, right? But in the end of the day, with all this blending that we're doing, what we should never compromise, what we never compromise with is quality.
Yeah.
The stuff got to work.
Yeah.
You put it on a motorcycle, right? And we talked about that earlier, how, you go in cross country with them, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure you get there in one piece, right? And nothing falls off. So for us, that was always like the
goal.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to make sure the quality is there.
That makes sense. I just, like I said, I just wondered, you know what I mean? Because when you think of the different cultures, whether it's Japanese and the way that they kind of do everything better than, like, they do our culture better than us sometimes, Americans, right? So like they have a style of like craftsmanship that goes into everything they do. And you can see that in the German engineering and the styling even, like I said Porsches earlier, but like I'm really, really horny with all kinds of 80s and 90s BMWs, Benzes. I don't know what it is. It's just like something at the time I wasn't into it, but maybe it's tapping into some nostalgia to my millennial nature or something like that. But I'm fucking in love with them, man. And if I open my marketplace right now, it's literally like nothing but BMWs, a couple like S500, the convertible one from like a 95. It's just prime drug dealer cars. You know what I'm saying? I love that shit, dude.
I worked at that dealership for 15 years.
Yeah, he worked at Mercedes.
Yeah, well, they did a bunch of different brands, but Mercedes and Porsche mostly is what I like to work on, and I got to drive them and be around them and worked on some classics too.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up with this stuff, right? I moved to the U.S. when I was like 30, right? But you grow up with this stuff. It's everywhere. You just take it for granted. Actually, when I was like 15, 16, 17, I worked in the little town next to where I grew up at this guy that would restore 50s and 60s Porsche, and he would bring a bunch of stuff he actually brought in from California because they were not as rusty as the German stuff, right? So, and that was just a little side job to make some money as as a teenager. We looked to the U.S. and said, "Oh, look at the muscle cars, right?
Yeah.
Look at all the cool stuff that was done here in the 60s and 70s, right? That got us a kick. My first dream car was a Chevy pickup truck with a long bed, right? And I was maybe 21.
Yeah.
And I was in heaven when I bought that car, right?
Nice.
Here, it wouldn't have been nothing. It's just, everybody in the neighborhood has like 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like the perspective, like where you look at this stuff, right?
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the old Chevy trucks were pretty affordable here until like Instagram.
Right.
Essentially, Instagram made them where they're all of a sudden they're $100,000. So it's a mess. When you guys, when Lynn came and you guys connected, what was the initial goal coming to the United States? Like, how did you pick where to start? What year was it?
Right.
I believe it was when y'all brought the blue bike to Daytona. Was that kind of the kickoff?
It was some of that. The blue bike definitely was part of it. It was, things sometimes happen for a reason. I was getting out of corporate. I was, obviously I was a CEO at Custom Chrome in the US there for a bunch of years, and I joined the Mag Group. I did all that. I was running Kuryakin and Mustang seats. And the more I did that, the less I felt connected to the actual industry and the scene and the parts, because
Yeah.
you just hang out with a bunch of, investment group people at board meetings, and it's important. Don't get me wrong, right? Everything has
Yeah.
a time and a place, but once it consumes like 50% of your time, you start questioning yourself. Why did I get in the motorcycle industry to hang out with those
Yeah,
guys,
bunch
right?
of
Or to
nerds.
be out there and work on cool motorcycle shit, right?
Yeah.
So I left that world, and I started, a small business, just do a bit of, consulting, help some friends in their businesses. And then, sometimes things happen. I go to Daytona, I think it was in 18.
Yeah.
And I hung out with Fred and Len, and we had a beer, and just talking about some stuff. And they needed some help. They were manufacturing some products in house for the European market, and they were hitting capacity, right? Because how much can you do? Right? They were building the best bikes in Europe.
Yeah.
They were manufacturing products in house. They were powder coating in house. They were painting in house. They had all this stuff going on. So they asked me if I can help them. And I said, sure. So we kind of worked on a project or two, and at one point we would just talk about the U.S. market. And obviously the brand was known definitely from people that used to go to, Daytona Bike Week in the 90s and 2000s, where Fred would win a Red Soul show, Best of Show, Red Soul, Boardwalk, all these things that he did with one-off crazy creations, right? But just in general, there was always demand for their product. But between making it in Germany and shipping it and exchange rate and customs and nowadays duties, right? All this stuff made it really hard for the average guy to buy their product.
Yeah.
Right? And they were just really not set up because they were so focused on the creative side, on the builder side, on the manufacturing side. So we talked about that for a little bit, and we just came out with a small line of products that we thought could do really well in the U.S. And I've seen people that come up with great ideas and then they go all in and throw a lot of money at it and they fail miserably. That was not really an option for us. So I said, well, why don't we just leverage my little company that I got, and then basically started from my garage. So we came out with, I think it was 15 part numbers. I bought a few of those. I'll show you later. But first big hit was our M8 soft tail lowering kit. And we just started to create a website and started selling it on the internet. And that was 2020.
Yeah.
Right? So we got started in late 19. We get into 2020, and then COVID hit.
Yeah. And you were based out of California at the time?
Yeah, up in the Bay Area, just half an hour south of San Jose. And that was like the point when it started. I'm like, okay, we've got to find a real job again at one point here, because we all thought that was the end. And then the opposite happened, right?
Yeah.
People were sitting at home, nothing to do. They were playing with their motorcycles. They had additional income, right? All those things happen, and suddenly our website starts going crazy, right? And I that's when I started to set up distributors. So I we had Suzuki and Associates in Japan, Rollies Speed Shop in Australia, people I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
They're like the best in their market, right? So we're setting these guys up, and they're starting to do really well. And at that point, we realized this was like mid-2020, when kind of that first COVID dip was over, and it went the other way. Right?
Yeah.
We were like, okay, we got something here, right? And so Len and I worked really hard on increasing the product offering. We moved to out of the garage into a real facility, and just started to build up from there. But that's really as simple as it is. It just happened that way. I always wanted to own my own company, but I always knew it's got to be the right timing. It's got to be the right thing. And pretty fast I realized, okay, this is it. This is going to be fun, because between Len and I, we complement each other so well. Len is an amazing designer, but he grew up in a workshop, in probably the best workshop in all of Europe in our industry, right? At Kodlin Motorcycles in Germany. So he knew how to weld. He knew how to work on the CNC machine. He can paint. He can fab. He can do all those things. He can build a motorcycle, a really cool chopper, whatever you want him to build from the ground up. But at the same time, he got the talent to sit in front of a screen, use SolidWorks, and come up with the next great product idea. Right? So he is taking care of all the design, engineering, all that creative part. and then I take care of the rest. I make sure the stuff get manufactured at the right place at the right time. I take care of sales and marketing and the day-to-day operations, things that really doesn't really bother Len too much, right?
Yeah.
So that makes us a great team, and it's been fun. You know,
That's important. It is. I mean, as Don's obviously dealing with too, and I'm dealing with, it's easy to do what we're good at doing, but there's always those two sides of the business, right? There's all the paperwork, all the online, like you said, the marketing, all these different things that go into play. That when you're sitting there racking your brain over designing a part or designing a paint job or whatever it is, if you tap in, oh yeah, I need to go do a marketing meeting with someone you know what I mean? It changes. It's a different part of your brain all of a sudden.
Oh yeah.
And it's like switching from those different parts back and forth sometimes can be just cause you to go crazy.
Well, and some people make that mistake. They think they have to be good at everything. They think they have to do everything yourself. Now, obviously, when you build a company, you have to do a shit ton of stuff.
You gotta know how everything works.
But you also need to surround yourself with people that can do things that you're not good at.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my philosophy when I was running companies. I always tried to find the best people to do, to run a certain department, and I wanted them to be a hell lot better than me. Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I would probably still be sitting in that shop there in Germany and help the guy, figure out how to fix the old Porsches. Right? You got to surround yourself with good people. Now, obviously, when you build a company from scratch, you got to get your hands dirty. You got to do everything for a while, right? But don't be a fool and think that some people think it's weakness not to be able to be doing everything yourself. And that's total bullshit, right? I mean, look at the technology world, right?
Yeah.
Whatever I figured out when we started 5 years ago on the website is completely obsolete now, right?
Yeah.
In your case, right, when you do your social media, your YouTube, you got to stay on top of this stuff. You just think you cracked the Instagram code.
Yeah, then they change it.
And then 2 months later, it's a whole new game, right?
Exactly.
So you need people around you that stay on top of that and are good at that.
It's an ever changing thing, and I think that's maybe for I got in the industry in 2004. It was my first year, and there felt like things changed slower. Like things had longer shelf life. The way you did something, whether it was advertising through a magazine, whether it was building a bike and hitting the Easy Rider shows in Daytona. Like there was a system that if you built a cool bike and you brought it to the places, then opportunities were waiting at those places to exploit you, basically. You get invited into magazines, and there was 40 of them to showcase your bike. You get invited to different bike shows, and there was actually money and purses and, hey, we're going to take you to the big boy across in Europe for the grand finale and stuff like that.
Yes.
None of that shit exists anymore.
Yeah.
And then when social media comes out, like I think my generation did pretty good because we knew how to we already had established ourselves in some form or fashion. And then this thing came out that we kind of been practicing since MySpace, right? And then we start posting our shit. It does well. And it's kind of like, for the first 6 years of Instagram and Facebook and stuff, it was pretty the same. And then when the algorithm shit got real fucking good, or not good for us, but good for, I guess, stealing your attention away, it made it to where you have to constantly change how you show your shit to the world.
Oh yeah.
And it gets complicated because it's like, I guess, not to bitch and not to complain right now, but I am. It's not about, like, nowadays, to stay on top of this shit, it's not always about like building like the best stuff, and it's not like you're rewarded for being the best at it sometimes.
I slightly agree with you on that.
Okay.
I agree with the philosophy, but for us internally, it's always product first.
Yeah.
We have, and I said that earlier, our product's got to be the best in our opinion, right?
Uh-huh.
In our opinion, it's the best looking, and it's definitely top quality.
Yeah.
That's just how Len and I operate. If it doesn't meet, if we wouldn't be able to meet that criteria, we're not going to make any noise about it, right? So I know where you're going from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
But for us, it's a product as a center. The product's got to be badass.
Yeah.
Then we build a marketing campaign around it, right? If you can't accomplish this, we will not bother. That's just how we are. Maybe we're just in a position where we're able to do that.
I 100% agree.
But
That's the way to do it.
I've seen people that just throw through the years, right? I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've known people throwing out some stuff where you look at it and you're like, wow, what's that? Then they put a huge marketing campaign on it and it explodes and suddenly it disappears again, right? Then you look at brands, let's talk about the brands, in my opinion, that do it right for centuries. Alnes, right? They've been building the best shit for years, for decades, right? And yes, they also are really great at marketing, right? But even with Allen, now Corey and Zach and the whole gang, they're always first class and the product was always perfect, right? Now, it might not meet your taste or this guy's taste, right? But they make a beautiful product and it's great quality. They have that stuff figured out. That's a role model for us.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. I mean,
that
that's
makes sense.
that's the best one to have, right?
Yeah.
King of custom.
Oh, yeah.
So, but 100% agree. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is I guess what I'm seeing, maybe not so much in the products side of things, but maybe the skill side of things.
Yeah.
You know, that like people can oversell their skills now through social media because their content's good and it overshadows the product. You know what I mean? And most people are making decisions and choices to buy shit based on social media, not based on seeing it in person anymore.
Yes.
Like we would, like what I was saying, we are accustomed to of, oh, I saw that bike at Daytona. I got to meet the guy that built it and I love their products. Now I'm a buyer for life, or I'm a fan for life now. You know, it seems like a lot of that stuff is shifting in ways. And I was kind of mentioning earlier that like, being in this and doing this podcast stuff, it's kind of like, I want to put the question on the table. Does it change? Does it evolve? And if it does, is it good, or should we talk about it now so that people see it? Maybe they avoid some of it, or do we got to let it happen?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
You gotta adjust yourself and make sure you follow that market. But isn't it a little painful for like really talented, hardworking people that spend hours to kind of create like this amazing part, and there's somebody else that cuts corners and just throws something out there and is potentially more successful?
100%.
It's unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
So we know we cannot build a bike anymore, like the best bike ever, put in a bike show in Daytona, right?
Yeah.
And then just stand there and wait for people to call.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. We know that. So you got to play the game. You got to be involved, and it's fun too. You want to.
Yeah.
Marketing is fun. I love it. But for some people, that's just what I said earlier, right? It must be very painful to see others being successful with something that's just mediocre, and it happens.
Yeah,
right?
it does. Yeah.
But I still believe, in the end of the day, if you come out with a really cool product, with something innovative, a product or a service, right, and the quality is there, you're eventually going to win. You got to make sure you put some effort behind it to promote it, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, no matter how, I mean, you can always stand behind that, right? That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, you can stand behind whatever you created, whatever you put out, whatever you build, you know, like at the end of the day, like there is still the real world that exists. And that's what happens, you know, when you can touch it and feel it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably an important place. And then you could figure out how to do the marketing, you know, later on. But yeah, it's you know, I love that having the conversations about it, just seeing where other people's minds are in the things. Cause when you think about it a lot, like you can kind of put yourself in a weird little rabbit hole or in a dark place of just thinking it's all going to shit, you know, a little bit, you know, negative about the things. But on the other side, to play devil's advocate of what I was saying, is that when the things change, it kind of shakes up the market and it makes people have to stay on their toes. And I think it keeps things fun-ish unless you lose it all. But for the most part, I think it's fun to like know that you can't just do the same thing you were doing 20 years ago and it's going to work today. You know, to know that you've had to grow yourself, how you connect with the world and all these different things, you know.
100%. And you've seen big brands in this industry, right?
Yeah.
That I don't want to say became irrelevant, right? Some of them maybe did, but definitely lost its edge and its share of the market. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Throughout the years. I mean, you look at the different categories. Look at exhaust, right? Big one. You look at, you know.
Would you say a lot of that's happened once they became, you know, private equity type stuff? When you get like when these companies get bought up and then there's no creative, there's no hungry, that's just a check for these people now, or what? Maybe not so much the people, but like it snips a lot of things in the bud, you think?
I get asked that a lot because I was involved with private equity quite a bit, and let's just say I didn't always see it end well. Right?
Yeah.
And because it's just suddenly it's I mean, I don't want to go too far right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But think about what we're doing here, right? I've been 30 years. I've been playing with motorcycles basically.
Yeah.
And I was able to make a good living, raise a family, buy a house, right?
Yeah.
Live a good life because I'm fortunate enough to be in the motorcycle industry, and there's people out there that buy product and are excited about it, right? But it's based on that, we're here because we have people out there that are as enthusiastic about something that we are. They don't necessarily need all those, crazy parts that we create, but they love it, right? Mm-hmm. So we love it too. That's why we do it every day. That's why we're excited to go to work on a Monday morning, right? You can't wait for it. And when some of these, and I don't want to call it private equity, but if some of these investment companies get involved, their focus changes. They built these groups, and it's all about paying down the debt, right, that they had to take on to buy the company. Yeah. So from top to bottom, the focus shifts a little bit, and you suck a little bit out of that passion and that love out of those businesses, right? And suddenly you talk about EBITDA improvement plans and turns. It's all important stuff. We all have to make money. We got to turn our inventory. But this becomes the center, right? The nerdy guys that you put, in the office and you close the door and you tell them to work on something, they take over.
Yeah.
Right? And if these guys take over, innovation, gets less, the excitement, becomes less, there's less product launches, there's the owner of the business spends less time talking to the consumer and to the customer out there, and goes out and writes with them and figures out what they need. He spends more time in the boardroom and in board meetings, right? So it's very dangerous. Now,
I can see how you were good at the consulting, because you're painting a great picture for me right now how this worked.
It's just how it works. It's just a reality, right? Yeah. So that's why some of these brands suddenly don't come out, and I'm not going to name the brands, but they don't come out with the new products that they usually came out with. There's a company that would launch like 100, 150, 200 new part numbers a year, and suddenly there's some stuff that they announce, right? So then there's other passionate, hungry people that take over the spot, and that's why a lot of these new brands that are out there. Kodlin is just a small part of this, right? But there's a lot of other brands. Kraus, right?
Yeah.
Trashin, 20 years ago, Sacha was building some bikes, right?
Yeah.
Right? But suddenly he saw there's this opportunity, right? And he came up with a cool line of products. Same thing with Trashin. Same thing with some of the others, right? And they just take over that market share, and people get excited about it. Now, you got the social media, you got all the modern marketing on top of this. But the core to me is when these guys lost the passion, and when these guys lost the focus, that's when the door opened for new brands and new companies.
When you started that whole spill, all I could think of, and we don't have to say names, but all I can think of is the exhaust companies that were so massive when I got into this industry 20 years ago that you would open up the drag catalog, and it was just like every year is a new style, new design, new finish. And now the market share, I feel like in a lot of ways, has become a lot of the private small groups that are coming up that are, can produce 3 pipes a week out of their garage and does a really good job and becomes a hot thing. And maybe they're not selling in drag yet, but like you said, it opens up the door for these new people to come in that are passionate, hungry, and things like that. Because, I'm just thinking in my head, like a lot of brands have kind of gone to the wayside because of that, I think.
Yeah. And they want to, when you look at the rallies too, right? When you go to a rally and the average consumer, right, he just walks up there. He does not want to have any corporate feel. He might work for Bank of America. Yeah. Right. And then now finally he's out there, with his buddies, with his wife, with whoever with, right? Yeah. And he wants to be out there and have a good time. So when they go to some of these big rigs, right, that are out there, they still need to get that feel that the people that are there are doing it for the passion too. And this is where, again, when these investment groups come in, once that feeling gets lost a little bit, it's not really authentic anymore, right? And then I don't really want it, right? Because I have the corporate bullshit, I got at home, right? I got when I go back to being a clerk at Bank of America on Monday, right? Yeah. If I'm out there riding with my buddies, I want to have a good time, and I want to feel like the people I'm dealing with have the same passion for it.
No, that's well said. That's exactly what on both sides of the coin. As a rider myself, and as a guy that has a brand, I want it to always be about the passion of going and being stoked that you got this part or this paint job or this build or this cam, whatever it is. Like, I think about Black Hills Harley during Sturgis, and I think about all my friends that are set up in booths and how everybody's waiting to go get a Trash Turbo because they want to do it there at the rally or a Thunder Max or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
But how cool is it when you go and wait in line to get your Trash Turbo to meet Nick?
Yeah.
Because he's probably just hanging out there or wrenching himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And he can talk to Nick Trask, the guy that started that whole thing. It was all in his brain.
Yeah.
And he has obviously an amazing team to be there too.
Yeah.
But you get that opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, how often can you go to an Apple convention and, meet Jobs, meet Pastor Bay, but you know what I'm going
you
with
meet the AI version of it.
Yeah. You can't. But here, you it was real people. And that's key.
Well, sometimes with these companies you get I'm not talking shit about any of them. I don't think either one of us are. But you think about the big brands and maybe the ones that started as families, but then it's gotten to the point where the family's not really involved in it anymore. And it's basically whatever marketing team they have brought in for this time frame becomes the face of the company or the presence the company has in the culture. And then when you go buy something from it, it does kind of, you don't feel like you're buying from passionate, like you said.
Yep.
And I'm trying not to say any names because I'm thinking of 100 of them right now. And it's not to talk shit about. I'm just saying,
not at all.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's the sad part about it. 90% of the staff in those companies, they were passionate. They loved it.
Yeah.
Right? They probably could have found jobs that made them more money, but they loved the brand, they loved the product, they loved the industry.
Yeah.
And those were the ones that suffered, right? And that's why I got so upset with it, right? Because I was in positions where I had to let these people go.
Yeah.
Because other brands in the group didn't hit the goal, and the short-term investment group is like, take cost out, right?
Yeah.
So that gets to a point where you like look in the mirror in the morning and you're not so sure if this is the right thing. That's why I stepped out of it. And for a while I was passionate on trying to change it, but I realized at one point I hit the wall. So I remember that one year I was at the MAG group, right? Mm-hmm. And we had to go as presidents of these different brands. We had to go to the board meetings pretty often. So we had that one board meeting, and then they were debating about, like, okay, where should we have the next board meeting? And I told these guys, I said, why don't we all go to Sturgis for that, right? Because it wasn't that, that July, August time frame.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, that's a good idea, yeah. And then they start pull out their smartphones, and they realized, there wasn't a freaking 5-star hotel there, and it was a pain in the ass to get in. But I wanted these guys to come out and actually experience it there with the customers, and it never happened.
Damn.
Unfortunately, I still think it was a good idea, but they kind of liked that out of the box thinking, but they didn't want to get
in practicality. They didn't care for it.
Yeah.
So you guys got the brand off the ground here in America in Morgan Hill, basically in NorCal, the southern part of NorCal, essentially. What made the push to come to Texas? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
It was pretty simple. So we kept growing the company. Obviously that COVID effect kind of disappeared, and a lot of the brands, established brands, kind of had that whip effect, the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Where they had to kind of reinvent them a little bit. We didn't, because we kept launching new products. We were the new kids on the block, right? So the company keeps growing. We keep adding different categories to it because that's a cool thing. Len and I making all the decisions, right? The only people we argue with about some of the bigger things is Len and I, right?
Yeah.
So and we probably look at the same direction 95% of the time, where we're completely aligned. So we keep coming out with new products. We added Drag Specialties as a distributor, which was a huge step for us. And I'm sure we get to that later on the bike that we built for him. But we got to the point where we were like 4 years into the thing, the lease for our building was up, end of last year, November. And we're looking at this, and we selected the building kind of under circumstances where we were not 100% sure who we want to be when we grow up, right? So we had a showroom, and we had the warehouse, and we had a shop. And, at the beginning, we were thinking we'd do a lot more bike building for customers. We figured out pretty rapidly that this is not really what we want to do. So we only built like 3-4 bikes a year. We usually built one for Len and one for me, and then maybe one or two more for a certain project or just
Yeah.
to showcase new products, right? So we got to that point, and we were looking at, okay, where we want to move to. We need a new building. And I think the shortest way to describe it is we both realized at one point that keeping the business in California is going to make it harder, right? We'll still be successful, we still do good, but why make it hard on yourself if there's better places to do business in the United States? So we were looking at different options, and of course there's families, and they look at this thing too. Which we have a very small team, but you want to make sure everybody's
happy.
Yeah, is on board. So we, through really weird circumstances, I learned about New Braunfels, particularly the hill country, but then being on that corridor between Austin and San Antonio. So I found that, and I was able to sell it to Len. I was able to sell it to my wife. You know what I mean? But everything just lined up.
Yeah.
There was a brand new, beautiful building available, which is more of a warehouse, R&D, and shop, and not so much showroom and
Yeah.
not catering for consumers really. When somebody comes by, we're happy, to show what we got, but there's not much to see on purpose. And we just felt like this is the best step forward for us as a business. Texas being extremely business friendly, the hill country being beautiful,
Good
where
riding.
you can actually ride. We love to ride, right?
Yeah.
We love to jump on our bikes and go for a ride. So it's all that. And then, New Braunfels, just as a little icing on the cake, you got that German heritage, which is, it's kind of funny. We didn't move there because of that, but it's just kind of cool, right?
Major coincidence.
Yeah, but it's not like Disneyland Germany, it's just there. People, they have the Wurstfest, which is freaking awesome, right? And we went there when we moved, and it's cool. It's like a smaller, classy version of the Oktoberfest in Munich. So we love all that, and then we had a friend and customer from us, Don, you mentioned him earlier from Miami, who worked with us in Daytona. He got a performance shop, and jokingly last Daytona Bike Week, he said, "Well, if you guys ever decide to move, let me know, because I'm thinking about moving out of Miami. So we could just build a nice package. So he's next door. So if somebody ends up, at our place, and he wants to buy a Kodlin product, and he wants somebody to put him on, we just send him next door, and Dom takes care of that. So that was just those were little nuances that were great, but we knew we had to get out of California in order to continue to drive the business at a pace that we wanted to. And we've been very happy. We've been there since last November, so it's, end February. So we're hitting the 4 months mark soon, and we've been really happy. The people are great. Everybody's very, very supportive. And
I think Texas in general is kind of hungry for more motorcycle industry to kind of make a home here. We have all year riding.
Yep.
It'd be really dope if we can get some lane splitting legalized here and at least some filtering.
Yeah.
It's such we're getting so populated in our highway systems, and our roads are just so congested that, like, I personally feel that would open up to a lot more commuters on motorcycles, which if more people ride motorcycles, then there's more maintenance, there's more sales, there's more everything that, maybe not the super nice custom stuff, but the tires, the oil changes, the batteries, that stuff is just a rising tide that floats all ships, I don't know what it would take to kind of like go be legislative, whatever. I'm just saying words I've heard. I don't know what none of it means. But I feel like as more motorcycle brands choose Texas, like I said, Lindahl also moved from California here, San Marcos, just north of you guys.
Yep.
There's a lot of great brands, especially in between that Austin and San Antonio situation now, and I think it's only going to grow.
Yeah, you get Lindahl,
Racetrack right down the street.
Simpson there. You got Caputo. You got a bunch of really, really cool brands in the area. And I've been advertising a lot. I'm still very connected in the industry. That people ask me about it, and there's a lot of brands that are still in California or other places that are considering to move. And I think where we are, it's a great place. You look at it. If you get two major cities, you got Houston, you got kind of the triangle there, right? Mm-hmm. Between those three, you got the hill country as we talked about, but then you got two great airports just around us. It takes an hour to 3 hours to be pretty much anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
When Len is in town, he flies in from Frankfurt in 9 hours. So you can go pretty much anywhere from there. We drive now to the NVP show, for example, Drag Specialist has in Kentucky, in Louisville. And well, this year was not a good example because the weather got so bad on us on the way back. But you can just haul your stuff. You can bring more stuff. It's easier. You don't have to pay all the freight companies or drainage fee. I remember the first time I went to NVP, we had to pay drainage. I'm like, what's that $1,500 there on that bill? Well, that's for this one guy that took the crate from one corner of the building to your booth and back. And you're like, oh, okay, got it. So now we're at a location where we feel like we can go, to some of those events a lot faster. Daytona Bike Week's not too far, but even if you go back to Born Free in California in late June this year, it's a haul, but it's not stupid. It's logistically it has its advantages, and
Well, back in the day, you had in California, you used to have the IMS shows, International Motorcycle Shows. You had, I think, 2 stops for the Easy Rider show. I know that they used to do one in Sacramento.
Sacramento for sure.
And I don't know if they did one in. They had to have done one like in Long Beach or somewhere south. I would think.
I forgot. Yeah.
But you had Reno, which was Street Vibes. It still goes on, and then you had like Laughlin, and then all the stuff in Phoenix, and then Vegas. You would have a lot of stuff. So, but it seems like a lot of the bigger events are kind of spread across the country now. Born Free is one of the best events there is on the West Coast for sure. But other than that, like industry-wise, there's not much of a draw to be anywhere out there,
Yeah, it's changed. There's a lot of really cool little events now. Right?
The smaller ones.
We had the Bay Area Throttle Fest that we attended 2 or 3 times with Jackie behind the helm.
Yeah.
She has such energy, and she's, again, authentic. She put that together. But that's a local thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you got Born Free, which is awesome. But, man, you look back, you think Hollister, right, the Independence Rally, that was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. It disappeared, right, because I don't know. I don't know if they don't like us bikers in some of these areas, but politics gets involved, especially in Hollister. It got all messed up there. I mean, there's not a lot going on in that area. Once you check off the Born Free show, it's crazy, right? Because you got so many brands, so many companies in the industry that are headquartered there. But and like Phoenix, hotbed as well. A lot of companies, a lot of brands. Yep.
A lot of weird things going on with Arizona Bike Week and Bike Week Arizona, depending on which side of the fence you're on. And such a great area, but like it still feels like it's as a business that if you're going to go there to go set up, nobody really wants to go set up at Westworld. It's like you got your motorcycle brand next to a roof company, next to a window company. You know what I mean? You want to go set up in like Cave Creek or something, or one of the dealerships, and it just seems like it's lost its luster. The same way Rot Rally was in Austin, it just kind of lost its way. The city grew too big. The rally didn't have a home. It couldn't really fit into to all the other things going on in Austin anymore. And then when they tried to move it to the track, it just didn't fit a track thing. It's not a racing thing. It's a different event, But Austin, we don't have a lot of events here in Texas. We do have Born Free Texas, and it is growing. I keep telling everybody to get in now and help build the show instead of everybody that complains because they can't go be a part of the Born Free show in Cali. Like that event's been there it's going on year 17 now. And, 10 years ago when they had space and people wanted to become vendors, nobody cared. Oh, yeah, it's not a big event. I mean, like industry. And now everybody wants to be a part of it, and there's no space. So
I would love to put on an event in New Braunfels, to be honest with you. We got the Wurstfest that I mentioned earlier. That whole area is beautiful. I don't know if you've been there, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's cool. They got real structure. They got these older, houses, and it's cool. You can build something there. We're doing our grand opening in a few weeks on March 26th this year, right? And we're doing it on a Thursday for a reason because there's a MotoGP weekend, right? But we love doing events, and right away when I got to New Braunfels, I'm like, this is perfect for it. You can ride. Just the whole city is catered towards tourists in this case. Us all having a good time. So I think you can build something there. But where do you start is always a question, right?
Yeah, I mean, you go on the other side, of Green and other side of River Road, and you're in like a little bit more rural, better riding areas, and it's this is a whole nother topic and a whole nother rabbit hole. But it just there's a lot of new development going on everywhere. It seems like every field's getting a new housing development, and that once that all gets built and it gets way more populated with that, you're going to get a lot more pushback for people trying to do motorcycle events and rallies. So you're going to have to go further west, which, trust me, it's not a bad thing. There's some really good spots out there. A lot of good events that do take place. Texas Hill Show, obviously, they're in Austin proper, but they've done a lot of their events in the Hill Country area. But I'm with you. I think it's got a lot of potential, and it just needs. It really just needs structure. People that have structure and they know how to like get in and get things done and like kind of going back to what you said about the business, like put together a team of people to come in and do different aspects instead of just trying to be the one person. Like, this is my event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because your event when it's a good event, but then when it's a bad event, it's all on your back. You know what I mean? So
no, if you do something big, no one person alone can pull it off, right? But you think about it, if you think about motorcycle events, right? Where else in like South Dakota or Texas do you think you can do something cool and fun for everybody, right? Without too many restrictions. I think so far my impression is this is a place you could definitely do it.
100%. I think a lot of it has to do with just I think a lot of it, like Lone Star Rally is a big event. It takes place in Galveston.
Yeah,
it's a good fucking time. It's not a riding event. I mean, you get a nice little. It's like in my opinion, it's a better version of Daytona. I said it. Hate me all you want. It's better because it's just more together. It's more put together. Like Daytona's like everybody's trying to rip that place apart. Like you got Orlando trying to get a piece of Daytona. You got Teddy up there with the dealership getting a little bit of Daytona. Then you got Daytona itself that's pulling some, and then you got the track. It's like it's this spread out thing that you feel like you jump from bike rally to bike rally instead of like you're just at a rally.
Yeah.
When you're in Sturgis, like there's not an exit you take off of 90 that doesn't feel like the rally's going on.
Well, and it's a riding event, right? I mean, and that's the cool thing about Sturgis. You're just out there riding all day long, and then you ride for half an hour, and you end up at Deadwood for a drink or something, right? And it's boom, it's happening. To me, Sturgis is its own
it's
league,
special,
right? It's its own freaking sport. Daytona, to me, was always kicking off the season, right? That's why it was always important.
Exactly.
And like we set up there for a few years, and then this year we're just gonna go out and hang out a little bit, check everybody out. I had a lot of people, and it feels like even though we don't really have a winter here, right? But it's like after the winter you finally get out to see your buddies, right? And but we definitely want to check out Galveston this year. Just go out there and see what's going on.
So Galveston's definitely more of a party than it is anything else. But it is a good time though. Like I have as a consumer, like stripping away the business side of it. As a consumer, you get out there, you're riding along the ocean. There's restaurants, and more importantly, like the city wants you there.
That's awesome.
That's the thing about Daytona that I felt like you were in the way a lot of ways. And when you're in Sturgis, come on, they're Airbnb, their houses out. Like it's like they need that money, and that's the way Galveston is. Galveston's the end of the year. It's like you said, Daytona. I think is always going to be what it is because it is that kickoff for the season, especially for the Northeast.
Yep.
But I have struggled to enjoy Daytona myself personally. But that's all I'll say about that before I say too much and get into a rabbit hole with all the East Coast dudes. But no, the products, man. I remember when y'all came out with the risers and things like that. Like I said, I've been following the brand for a very long time, even before you guys were part of in the American market the way you are now. And I agree. I've always been drawn to the at least the perception of the quality that I saw through the internet of the paintwork, And I when I say to the paintwork, when a brand chooses to put quality paintwork on their bike, it says a lot about the rest of the work they do to their bike. When you apparently are the best at everything you do, then you cheap out on paint or you do some half-ass paintwork on it. It kind of null and voids the rest of your bike to me because you don't care enough to put quality work on top of your quality work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
And not to talk shit about anybody, I think paint can sometimes be subjective as to what people think is good or not, but sometimes like subjective or not, if that color don't work or that graphic scheme looks like shit. Like it is what it is, right? Always been a big fan. With you guys building this product line now here, how did before we start talking about products, how did the process go with like building the bike for drag and being on the catalog? How is that?
You're fast forwarding now.
I jumped over to that,
Yeah.
but
that was pretty straightforward, right?
So when did y'all get in drag? Like,
Yeah, so we started to sell through drag, what is it now, 4 years ago.
4 years,
right?
okay.
January of
22?
22, I think, is when we started to get the deal finalized. And then the following August, I think it was, late August, that's when MVP show was still in August. We went to Madison and had our first MVP show. That was a hit because we were like the new guys with everything we had on display was new. Right?
Yeah.
For drag, so we got the reps fired up. They got 60 plus sales reps in the field, right? And those are your best friends. And they're cool guys, but those are the people you want to make sure they're educated and they know what's going on. So we got them hyped up, and that was a great kickstart. And then, man, it wasn't too far. I think maybe a year or two later. It's when I had our first M8 Road Glide. That was my personal bike, and it had the fat tire in it and big engine and the air ride and all this. And Tom Motzko, who actually just retired after 50 years with drag specialties, that guy is a legend, right? But Tom was the new vendor guy. I've known Tom for many years. We've been friends for a long time, and he was tremendous help to get the program started. But Tom used to come to, whenever I had my bike with me or we had it at the show, he's like, man, I love your bike, right? And it used to be a joke where I'll be like, well, everything got a price tag, right?
Yeah.
And Tom Motzko, he can build himself 10 other bikes, right? But that was kind of our thing. And then at one point, I don't know, after a year or so, I said to Tom, well, if you want your own Kodlin bike, we can always, build one for the catalog, right? And he just looked at me with a straight face. It's just like he didn't even consider. He's like, man, of course.
Yeah.
You would do this? I said, well, I don't want to speak for Len, but yeah.
Yeah.
We can do this. And but the conversation, you don't want to push these things too hard. It was just good conversation. And then he calls me, a few months later, and he's like, hey, remember when we talked about you guys building the catalog cover bike? I thought about that. That would actually be great. I think you guys could do a good job. And I told him, I said, well, Tom, think about it for a little bit more, but I can guarantee you that if we get that opportunity, we're going to put everything in this that we have. Now, we're still going to stay within the frame of a drag specialties catalog cover bike needs to feature parts that are in the book, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to fab so much up, which is for somebody like Len growing up in that custom scene, right, his whole life, you had to slow him down a little bit because he wants to just do stuff. It's in his nature, right? But we knew we had to stay in a certain parameter. But then the next MVP show came around, and Tom came back to us and says, hey, I really want you to do this. Do you think you can build the 2026 catalog cover bike? Which means you start kind of working that in sometime in 25, because you handed over in August, or we handed over in Sturgis 2025, because then they take it and then they do their
the photo shoot,
video, all of this, because the catalog needs to be printed and all this.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that they changed it from where, like, do you keep the bike now as opposed to before? They used to, like, it just became drag specialties, and there'll be like a warehouse full of their bikes.
Yes, exactly. They started to auction them off, I think, at the dealer shows. You keep it. So we bought the bike, and then they send us the product that we picked, other than our own. And then they have a budget for paint and all this. But, again, for us, we said, all right, we're going to go all in. So we decided, again, to stay within the parameter, but to not just, do like a simple paint job and just do a bunch of bolt-on stuff. So Len took the bike apart completely, and then we powder coated the frame, powder coated a bunch of matching components. He still did a lot of details that the average guy doesn't see right away, but then you start looking closer at the bike, you're like, oh, there's all this going on. We wanted to be a performance inspired bike, and we decided to go with chrome finish because it hasn't been done, for a while, and we feel like there's more people are going back to using chrome parts. Len took it completely apart, and then we called our buddy Markus Pfeil from Pfeil Design in Austria to paint it. And people are like, are you guys nuts? Right? Why would you do this? But we've known him for 25 years, right?
Yeah.
Len has done multiple bikes with that guy in Europe. He's extremely, extremely talented.
One of the best, yeah.
Yes. And so we shipped all these parts to Austria. He painted them and shipped them back, right? And then Len put the bike back together. And it was so worth it, right?
Yeah.
It was not within the budget, but we said, what the hell do it? Plus, Marcus talking again about, being excited, being passionate. For him, it was also a huge honor for us to be the guy that painted that bike, right? And for us, it's a motorcycle that you can always argue, right? And then Len picked the green base coat for a reason,
I think I told you. I think I told you when I was at your shop a couple weeks ago. Like, I am very into that green right now.
Yeah.
Like, I think my bagger's going a version of that.
Sweet.
It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just I feel like a lot of that color is starting to come back right now. Maybe it's bikes like that one that you guys just did for the cover. It's going to help reinforce it. You know what I mean? And a lot of us, but I feel like I got 2 customers that want to go a green route. I'm trying to go green. So it's probably going to be the year of green, to be honest with you.
Well, that's sweet.
So,
well, and
you have the book down there?
yeah. The majority of the people said, I love the bike.
Oh, yeah.
But there's always a guy that says, how can you paint a bike green? And that's fine. That's their opinion, and that's good with us. We actually like it that way, but the overall feedback was amazing.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes the color you do paint the bike becomes, if you do something that's off of your red, white, or your red, white, blue, black, gold, or orange, pretty much are always the safe bets. But like when you do a green or a purple or these off colors, you either get them, they either love it or they keep staring at it because they hate it. Yeah. But they keep staring at it, and then it, you know what I mean? It gets their attention more. So,
but yeah, here it is on the cover, right? And the way I look at this, we love doing this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Len is an extremely talented bike builder. We mentioned that earlier, right? But then you start thinking about our business here, and we started the U.S. business only 5 years ago, and here we are on the cover of the largest distributor on planet Earth for motorcycle aftermarket parts. This thing is going to be at every Harley shop on the planet, at every custom shop, right? The motorcycle is going to be at every major event. We kind of went above and beyond like the average guy that would probably get this opportunity. We took it down. We were still in California when we finished it, so we took it down Highway 1, did a great photo shoot and videos and all this. But this is why it's used, a lot. And we got on their magazine too. We got a poster somewhere. Yeah. So for us, it's just combining to do what we love to do with being on this platform. So been phenomenal. And even, we had our distributors from outside of the US that are somehow competitors to Drag 2. They ask us if they can use the bike images too, and we double checked, and it has a big Drag logo on it, and it's fine. And it shows you too that they just appreciate a cool bike with with a lot of products. So we had a lot of fun just diving deep into the catalog. Now, of course, we used a lot of our own parts. We have a lot of products for the new touring bikes, right? From the license plates to the risers to the water reservoir covers, etc. But then going into deep and picking nest parts, and of course Legend got involved, Custom Dynamics, Trashen, Bazzani. There's a bunch of really cool parts that we're able to use. I'm sure I forgot one or two, right? And then we leveraged some of our partnerships. We put a Kodlin seat made by Mustang on it.
Nice.
Which is just a cool opportunity to show what we think is one of the best quality seats combined with Len's design talent. And then the same on the rotors. We used the SBS by Kodlin rotors. The black version of them that we just launched with that bike. We had them before for the Softails. Now we got them for the touring bikes. We got a black
And those
finish.
spokes, they match those Ness
It works well, right?
split spoke. Is that what that is?
I think that's what they call it. Yeah.
They look pretty good. They work with it well. That's why because I'm running the same wheels on my bagger, and I was like, man, that's actually going to look pretty good.
Yeah, we're happy with how it came out. The Ness quality, that whole front end is Ness was awesome, but then our rotors just fit great with it, and that's about 500 miles on them. So you see a little wear from the brake pads, right? Of course, but it's like a polished black. But the way SBS does it, and that was very important to us, is in a way where the black stays black because the black is in the material, so it's not a coating. And you can just use anybody's brake pads, right? You can use stock ones. Of course, SBS, we say that too. SBS makes great brake pads, so use theirs. But if you're into EBC, whatever your thing is on the brake pads, you can use, the bottom line is you can use a high-performing brake pad
show the
with those
rotor?
rotors. Yeah. I have them right here.
You put it underneath everything?
Yeah, very professional.
Yeah.
So that's one of the soft tail designs. So you got the 7-spoke in black for the M8 soft tails. We got, like I said, more fitments now. We got the touring fitment. That's a 10 spoke. That is very similar to the one put on the touring bike.
Nice. Yeah, you can see the different shape on the pad or on the friction rings here.
Yep. They did a nice job, and for us, when we started the partnership, we told them that if we do this, we want there's certain things that need to work, and one was kind of those parameters on the black finish.
Yeah,
and they nailed it. I mean, we're very excited with the SBS partnership. They hired actually a sales and marketing manager now specifically for the S. Her name is Angel. She's from San Diego. She worked at San Diego Harley. She worked with Indian before. I think she worked for Polaris as an OEM. Mm-hmm. So she really gets what the dealers need, what the consumers need. She's a rider too. She got a lowrider ST. She really gets it. So we're really excited about having her being part of the team now to send the message.
Are you planning on these rotors, like these different designs? Are they going to come in the different carriers basically?
Yeah, well, this is an initial launch, right? So we are open to anything. We're looking at different sizes. We're looking at different carriers. We got a 9-spoke design also that I didn't bring. We're going to build out the touring offering. So this is just the beginning, and obviously, again, we're doing it because we love what we do, but also because we got to make some money. Having it on the cover, of the Drag Specialties catalog is really going to help to send that message out. Because here's the bottom line: a lot of people don't know about them yet, right? We launched them last summer, then we added now the touring version, and so far people see them, they go crazy. They're like, "What's that? Why didn't I know about it?" Well, it's a new product, right? So we're just at the start of that partnership.
Pushing that out there. So what you were saying, like when you first kicked off the brand, kicked off the product line, what was your Softail lowering kit? Lowering it made it.
I have that too.
It's crazy because when you got to this point, it's like the culture was kind of shifted where half of them wanted to lower it and the other half wanted to raise it.
We got both, right? But remember, the brand was inspired by what's going on in Europe, right?
Yes.
Initially, that was me helping Kodlin to manufacture a few products, right? Where they didn't have to do it in-house. So this was the very first product we did together. Of course, Kodlin did many products years before without my involvement. But that was the very first one that Len created. And it's an M8 Softail lowering kit. It is made out of steel for a reason. It's not aluminum. Man, I didn't butcher the word aluminum this time.
That's good.
I think it's my first time. So it's made out of steel. It got pressed in bearings. It's sealed up. We sell thousands of them. They do great. We got 2 versions. One is for the shock with a remote preload adjuster, and one with a preload adjuster.
How far is it? Is it adjustable to lower it, or is it just like a single?
It's about 1.5 inches. It kind of depends on the setup, but it's between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches that's lowering. And what this thing does, there's 2 things. One is what you and I thought about first is the look, right? You
Yeah.
want to lower the bike. But then there's also some people that are vertically challenged, right? And they want to get more control of the bike. Sit somebody that is below 5'5" on a lowrider ST. The ST has the extended shock, right?
Yeah.
Just like the S after 22. That thing is high, right? And you put this on and you just feel more comfortable on the motorcycle. And it does not impact
The
the
ride.
way it handles at all.
Yeah.
Right? But then for the rider that wants more ground clearance, right? We have a lift kit too. We have two versions. One is a 1-inch, and we have one that is 7/16, where that would be the maximum lift you can do on lowrider STs and lowrider S's with the extended shocks. That will be doable without hitting the swing arm, right? So those came right after. That's maybe our most unsexy product. Well, probably, definitely, right? There's nothing great about this
It's
from a look perspective, but it does a great function.
Yeah, it's when you make a product that is kind of invisible, but solves a problem
Yep.
in one way or another that like becomes your like flagship product.
Exactly.
That you're like, this bike has that product on it. Where's it at? It's just in there somewhere. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
And but that that was for a lot of consumers. That was the first impression with the brand.
yeah,
And to this day, we got 2 back out of all the thousands we sold, and it's because of installation error. And
Yeah.
and I remember this was very, very early. The guy sent us pictures, and he says, hey, I screwed up here, right?
Yeah.
He just didn't install it, right? The whole bearing was all banged up. But he was very honest and direct, and it was very early in the day. And I said, hey, look, here's the deal, right? You take this thing, because he said, I'm not a good mechanic, right? I said, here's the deal. We're going to send you a new one for free. But we take your word that you're going to take it to a qualified mechanic, right? You take it to a dealer, or you take it to somebody that's a qualified mechanic, and you have that installation done. But that was the first impression a lot of people had with the brand. And then they started to look for more. And we launched shortly after. We did a ton of new lighting options with our tiny LEDs, our 3-in-1s for the rear, our 2-in-1s for the front, Softail fitment, later on touring fitment.
Did y'all kind of focus more on the Softails initially coming out?
Yes, absolutely.
Because there wasn't a whole lot of brands that I felt like jumped on the Softail thing quick.
Yep.
Like it was more. I mean, obviously, as a company that's going to make products, you want to make sure the bike has staying power. That's going to people want to buy it. You know what I mean? You don't want to design parts for the V-Rod in America, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense that a lot of people waited a couple years to really go full force into creating products for it. But I did notice that you guys had a lot of stuff for it out of the gate.
Absolutely. There were 2 reasons, right? One is in Europe, the Softails were way more popular than the baggers, right? We're talking 2019, 2020. So we did it for the European market, but then I also felt that there is an opportunity in the US because there was an underserved market, right? And we had the mini fender struts indicators for the M8 Softails. It's one of our top sellers too, right? The 3-in-1s that you put in right there where the oval is on the strut. Those products were launched, but we even did, and we still sell that, and we're doing good with it. We sell a stretched gas tank for the M8 Softails. We have a white fender for the Fat Boys and the breakouts, right? We have a chin spoiler. We have a lot of products that are specific around some of the Softail models, all of them are specific ones, like the breakout. We had a headlight conversion kit. If you don't like that, the original breakout light, right now they changed to a round headlight in 24 or 25, right? But if you don't like that, we have a little bracket where you can just put a regular Bates style headlight on, make it more look like a chopper, right? If that's what you want. Then we get into the risers and into, I think, and we really like looking at Harley Davidson, what they launched, and you can see kind of what we did with it, right? So Harley Davidson launched the Lowrider ST, and that's where Len designed a line of products specifically for the ST, and then obviously some of them work for other Softail models, but this was our fastback risers. We had specific 2-in-1s that you mount on the Lowrider ST for the front on the fairing. We have our engine guards that came out. We were told that our bronze that we use for our engine guards matches the stock bronze with the wheels.
Okay, yeah.
Better than anybody else's, right? But we had a bronze version. We have a black version. They were a little more high end than just like a regular engine guard, and then we had the little, guard in the center. We call it the spoiler in the center,
Yeah.
right? to protect your regulator too. So we kind of launched that, and then there was just other products kind of coming out along with it, floorboard line and things like this. And then the next huge step for us was when Harley came out with the new road glides and the new street glides with a 23.5 BVT style touring bikes. That was that next major step for us. That's where we sat down and really looked at that bike and looked at opportunity and came out with, I don't know, a good 10, 15 parts for that platform. And that was kind of the next. And you always have like one, you always have products that do better than others, right? But you always have like one or two and they're like just crazy, right? And that for us, with that bike was the water reservoir cover that I mentioned earlier and the ledge covers, because we were the first to market with a lot of this product. So here's your water reservoir cover. The thing stocks ugly. I like to show the chrome one, especially on the bike.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's kind of black on black. But you basically you just slide that cover over. There's 2 set screws that you put on and put the cover in place, and then you have the top cover. Same thing. You have 2 set screws. And
so on the on the reservoir itself from Harley, it has like the radiator cap and all this. So this goes over it essentially to kind of just completely cover and do that.
And then there's a little slot so you see your water level on the side, right? Exactly. And then, if you need to add water, if you need to add coolant, you can take the top off. But, with the 2 set screws, you just take off the whole piece.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier to you, that thing installs in like minutes. It takes you longer to find the right Allen in your toolbox, to put it on than the actual installation process takes. It's a cool product. It's $200. It's priced right, and then
that's not bad for that's a lot of material that gets taken away for $200.
Yes, and a bunch of machining that's going on, and it's our signature lines. So we have matching parts in the ledge covers, we have that horn relocation kit where there's a cover. We got the master cylinder cover. Though these are all the same machining lines, across the line.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's actually a really good price point on that.
Thank you.
I mean, you're talking about does it start off as it's probably more cylindrical, huh? Like this piece, it's like a cylinder.
Not so much, no.
You think it starts off as a block?
It's pretty round. No, it's pretty. It's a. What we did is we did a forging for it, and then have a forging and then a machine around that forging.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hit the price point. Not with that sophisticated.
Yeah, if you were drilling all that material out, that would it'd be gnarly.
We're coming out with a I don't want to call it 2.0 version, but like next level cover along that line. But it also includes the bracket that is, the stock one is plastic. So that will be a little bit more sophisticated, and we have to charge a bit more for it.
Yeah, obviously.
But we'll try, our ledge cover, the same thing, the $200. That lowering kit is $150, we try to price it right. And then sometimes you have a part like our fastback riser, that's machine porn on that thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's $699, right? But then we also have now the S and Pro risers, they're $549. They're not as sophisticated. They have a pullback. They get internal wiring, so they're kind of the opposite of the other one. So we always try to stay in line with everybody else, but every so often you just also want to show the guys, hey, this is how it really can look like.
When we were talking about them earlier, but when did you ever meet the MJK, Mad Jab, those guys back in the day? So when they, of course, that whole thing kind of crashed and burned with what he was doing, but what he was doing was making such high end stuff and charging whatever just whatever he thought, like it was like Price is Right, just running a thing down it, and people wanted it. They ate it up. So it's like the price point. It really depends. Like when you look at those risers, like your higher end ones that has all the machining and everything going on, like I think it would absolutely have no problem selling at that point.
Yeah.
As opposed to everybody that wants to kind of dumb it down, and that's the only thing they offer because they're trying to be affordable all the time. It's like you got to have a level, a swing, from the highest end to like, I just need this thing to do the job but still look good. You know what I mean?
That's what we try to do. We're obviously we got to pay the bills too, right?
Yeah.
But we think we got we do plenty good with some of the products. And here's another great example. This is our track bar, right? And we got them in 1 inch. This is the one with the 1.25 inch clamping, right? This is Yep, this is a VVT style one. Just,
I'll take your tooth
we got
out.
product liability too. But this one here is made of aluminum, and for the black version, we charge $140. Right?
Okay. Yeah. So it's on point with most of the market.
It is, and the product is cool. We coming up with a high one and a low bar too now, but
So you're not doing this thickness on all the bars, are you? Or how does that work?
the logo or the thickness. No, we got a 1 inch,
Okay.
and then this one is 1.25 inch. So the 1 inch version works great with our fastback risers, and then the 1.25 inch works with our S and Pro.
Okay.
But you can also, we had people actually the 1.25 inch that we had people put them on a breakout, right? Because they got
it's
the
the same
1.25 inch
size.
clamping, right?
Yeah.
So we have those two versions. Then we do have the VVT style for the new touring control, the new software controls, and then we got the throttle by wire version too.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I was saying earlier, I really like a 29-inch bar, but I think it's got a good pullback. I just hate when they're wide and they don't have pullback in them, you know?
They're 4 and 4, and I think I remember they're 31.5 inch wide, 31.5.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
But then, then every so often, like I said, we also want to show the industry, like, what else can be done and what hasn't been done. So this is our NXL line. In this particular case, we call it the red line. So what makes NXL cool is it's an aluminum base, right? Now I did butcher the word, I think.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Damn it. Anyway, it's hard. And it got a stainless steel top, right? So that was already created to be very customizable. It's super light. It's a performance product. But then when the new CVOs came out, we added this red plate. So it matches the exact powder coat that Harley's using for the lower rocker boxes and some other components they do in red. So the CVO crowd, they see this and they want to use it right away. But we actually used this board for the drag cover bike too. And just to show that you can actually also use your own creativity, we took the red plate out, powder coated in the same color and that same green.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was called, but that green, sparkly green that we used for the frame to match it. So now this is matching your frame. And then there's, your imagination is a limit. You can heat treat the stainless, for example. You can powder coat the base, and the part is super light. Yeah. But we were still able to.
Oh yeah.
We were still able to sell it for $549, which is very competitive with other floorboards that are out there, right? So. Again, we're trying to be fair on the pricing side, but we also every so often we want to kind of push the limits a little bit on coming up with something new and something different.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Well, the stainless stuff, I mean, you could engine turn this stuff. You could brush it like it is now. Yeah, you say put some heat on it, get a little color in it, different spots. That'd be cool as hell.
Yeah, and we're starting to see customers to send us pictures on what they did with it.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting.
It is super light.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then just to wrap up the parts, just talking about how we started to use different categories now. This is a brand new mirror that we launched a few weeks ago. Again, our machining lines, that are matching some of the other products that we do. It's very thin. We're going to use that same stem for different mirror designs. We're coming out with a new arm that actually has a 2-in-1 LED in here, so you can actually use them as turn signals too. For if you're on a touring bike, just to have additional signals. But especially like on some of the Softails would be really cool. You can go back to twin cams and put them on, and that'd be fun.
Well, with the Softails, just have really, really funky, like, turn signal locations. Like some of them are, I don't even know how. I usually, whenever I've built Softails in the recent years, like I would just get rid of the front turn signals altogether. Right. You know what I mean? But yeah, like these right here, your other ones that I know you're going to pull out in a minute, having the LEDs on this stuff would be super clean and just not having these bulky lights hanging off the front of the bike. You know what I mean? Yeah,
we like that. We like it small, but we also like it to be very visible, and that we're working on a project right now that we're going to launch this summer to replace the rear lights on the new touring models. Mm-hmm. And one thing Harley did with those is they're bright, they work.
Yeah.
And for us, the challenge was how can we make them look cooler and make them work at least as good, if not better. And we have a project coming out that's using 3 of our new LEDs that we developed for each site. So they are super, super bright. And the product's still in prototype phase. That's why I didn't bring it, right? Because there could be some changes. But they would be plug and play, right? You take the stock ones out, put ours in. That's an exciting new product. And then I did bring, we just finished the new Softail light. So we do have for M8 Softails up to 24, we do have the perch mount indicators for the front.
So they kind of go right under the
Exactly.
your bars, yeah.
Yep. And then the new in 25, Harley changed the handlebar controls for the Softails too. So we had to start from scratch. So we have, and they're different on the left and the right side. So we have a kit out that's launching. This is like the world premiere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's the first time we're showing it in public. Is a kit where.
So the one in your left hand, that's for the new hand control style?
Clutch side and then brake side. Right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
you take the lower piece of the handlebar controls off
Yeah.
with the lights, the whole thing goes off, and then you put ours in. And they have this round LED in it it's a brand new that we're going to use for all of our new lightings going forward. It's a right running and amber turn. The right side is not as complex. It's a little different, right? But this is a brake side. And same thing, you take the
little
stock
cover,
piece off,
yeah.
yep, and then you mount this guy in and you're good to go. Very excited about that. A lot of people ask us because people used our what we call them ellipse 2-in-1s for the front on their old Softails. Now they got a new bike and they
wanna
don't
run
want the
them
big
again.
clunky one, right? They want the small one, and they disappear when the bike's turned off. You don't
Yeah,
even see them.
I feel like some good design elements is some products need to just disappear on the bike. You don't need them all to stand out, right? If every little piece of the bike stands out, it becomes too hard to look at. It becomes, a Jackson Pollock painting or something like that. It needs to have, so like some lighting, some things that are functional like turn signals and stuff, they need to just be seamless in the bike.
Yep.
I feel like sometimes people do their seats a little bit too flamboyant, and it takes away from like the just the rest of things going on, So lighting, I think 15 years ago, lighting was definitely something that the aftermarket, there was a big opportunity to make better stuff than what the manufacturers were coming out with. Now they've kind of caught wind not caught wind, they've just kind of elevated their stuff to where the new headlights, the stuff that's coming on, like especially the touring bikes, it looks pretty badass.
Yeah.
Right? It's a kind of an iconic look now, in my opinion. So the lighting that people are bringing to it, they kind of have to, it's like you have to do as good as that and be cooler now, which
Yeah.
it's a tall order in
challenge,
some aspect.
right?
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you, and
Yeah.
that's why, it's just got a little harder. But I think, to your point, and especially around the lights, they shouldn't be when the bike's turned off. They shouldn't be in your face, right?
Yeah.
And we had at many shows, we had the rear ones too. We had our bike parked, right, and then people are just kind of checking it out, and then we turn it on for them, and then it blinds you. That's
Yeah.
how bright they are. And they're all like, "Oh my god!" Right? And that sells the product without you don't need to do much other than that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our philosophy on the lighting side for sure. Small, you don't see it when the bike's turned off, but very very bright when you
Yeah.
need it.
It does its job. So yeah, you got how many products do you have now in the catalog? Like, is everything you make available through Drag, or is there still like stuff that you're only through like your own personal website?
Nah, the majority, I want to say 95% of the product that we have is available through Drag and their dealers. There are some kits and stuff that we do on the website that's specific. We have over 200 part numbers now.
Yeah.
I think we're like in the 220s.
Dang.
And by the end of the year, we'll probably be around 300. There's
I don't
ton
think
in the
people
pipeline.
realize like when you like different products having that many SKUs is a lot. You know what I mean? It's there that's like a percentage of this book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of parts, man. Like to keep up with manufacturing and stock and all those type of things. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you are, so in my old world, I was not as hands-on, of course, right? Because I was managing a big group of people.
Yeah.
So of course you love the parts and you have your favorites, right? But now, I don't know, you just have a relationship to every single one. It's like, I guess it's like having a lot of kids, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is special in its own way, and of course you get your favorites, right? But you have a relationship to every part because you're involved from the idea all the way to marketing it and selling it.
Yeah.
And that's just great. It's exciting. And we at one point I'm sure we're going to obsolete a few.
Yeah.
But right now everything is still selling good. Some are better than others, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we'd be at 300 by the end of the year. We got
Damn.
a ton of stuff in the pipeline. We were just going through the list the other day. It's like, oh my God, there's a few things you just don't have in the radar because they're like in the sampling part or they're like out there in the quoting area, and then they come back and you're like, oh my God, I forgot we had that one in the pipeline too, right? So there's some exciting stuff. We're coming out with the whole new line too of covers, for the new touring bikes. Again, the whole LED product line will be revamped, even brand new product or updated LEDs that we developed. And that's, creating new LEDs. It sounds like, oh yeah, they came up with a new LED, but to us, it's really like going from iPhone 10 to iPhone 15 in one jump, right? Because technology is developing that fast, but we cannot tool up for new LEDs every year.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting for us, though.
So what all, as we, we're kicking off 2026, right? So you guys are going to Daytona. Like, what's some of the other events that you guys are trying to have a presence at this year?
So what we decided not to do so much is, and I want to say that very, very respectfully, but it's spending 2 weeks on a parking lot in front of a Harley dealer, simply because we're not set up for that, right? We did that in the past, and Daytona specifically, and it just takes so much resources from our company, where it's a pretty small company, right?
Yeah.
And then Len and I being away for 2 weeks, it feels like you come back and you missed 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So we teaming up with Rick Rack for a lot of those bigger events because they have a big show truck. They got 5-6 mechanics on the team. They're great. They have the same values. So they're going to be out there representing some of our best-selling products at those events, and then we're going to support them right at certain events.
Yeah. What is this Rick Rack place? I've been hearing about them more.
Oh, they're from the East Coast. They got a nice business. They got a great website. They got their own little product line too. In fact, we used their shifter link, carbon shifter link on our drag bike that we built.
Because I just ordered their little dongle so I can use my CarPlay.
Yeah, they do.
That's how I found out about their company, because I just Googled it real quick and then I got it and it does the job.
Same thing, private ownership. Shane owns it. He's a great guy. Him and his dad started it with some being bikers, being riding bikes forever. They came up with a few product ideas. Now they got this big show truck. They go to all major events for a few years now, and they focus on different brands, and one of them is ours. So we're honored to be part of this. And then there's other events where we would just go ourselves. So Born Free for us is a highlight, right, in California. We're going to be out there, and we're going to set up, and there's a lot of our people there, and there's a lot of industry people too. There's,
Were y'all set up there last year?
Yeah.
What area were y'all in?
San Diego Customs.
Oh, okay, nice.
We were actually, last year we were making German brats and German beer and handing them out. So we always.
I'm gonna eat it this. I'm gonna come get some this year for sure.
I'll make some brats for you. We might do something else this year, just to keep it fresh. But that's definitely a highlight for us. We do all the drag events. The bike's gonna be at the truck, like I said. So we're gonna show up here and there, and just talk about the brand and the bike at drag events or at drag rallies. We're gonna ride to Sturgis.
Nice.
We're probably gonna do some pop-ups here and there, and then we're gonna check out some of the local stuff. Right, we're gonna be in Galveston and see what's going on there. I want to ride over to the Texas Born Free, check that out, and see what the rest of the year brings.
Yeah. Well, when you ride to Sturgis, let me know, because you kind of got to pass me, and I'm riding that bagger to Sturgis this year.
Oh, you do, huh?
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I'll show you some good routes from here up there, because this is where we go every year.
Yeah, I used to ride in from California a lot, and we did all the norths and souths, and I've done that many times. My first ride was
all
on the
that
chopper.
beauty, all that beauty you get to see, none of that. That's not
None of the beauty.
none of that. You got to find the beauty.
Probably going to Colorado a little bit. Huh?
The problem is if you go in there, you could, but then you're just sitting in traffic in Colorado because you're on 25 and it's just city and then traffic and city and traffic. But you'd have to go deep into Colorado and go through the mountains, and then there's not really a good north-south Colorado route because most of it's east-west. Like 70 goes across. $1 Million Highway goes north, but it ends in Grand Junction. Then you kind of zigzag through it. But there are a couple gyms going across Kansas. I mean, it's
Okay.
It's just I think it's just a mindset. You know what I mean? Get to a cool little town, pull over, grab a beer or two. Or we usually like try to jam up to like once you get to like western Nebraska, it's rolling hills. It's kind of like it's beautiful, honestly. Especially because you're riding in flat all the way there.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it starts to get nice and rolling, you're like, oh, this is pretty sick,
Well, I definitely want to ride from here. We're going to go back to the West Coast too to ride with the hamsters out. Because
you do all the stuff with the...
That's a yearly thing we do, and I've probably done it 15 times. My first one was actually with Fred. Fred and I were riding in 2004. I had probably one of the most radical choppers in Europe. That was the Custom Chrome Europe catalog cover bike back then, and it was extreme hit and brake system. It was a rigid. First of all, it was one of those bikes when I shipped it over, and the other guys at the Hamster saw it. Right. Apparently they were putting money down on if I would make it or not, right? And I did make it, and then they threw me the yellow shirt when we got there.
That's badass.
Things were a little easier with that. And
so is that how long you've been in hamster since?
2004, yeah. So
that's awesome.
What is it?
21,
Christ.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, make that beer look even grayer than it is. But yeah, that was my first ride with them. Two Sturges. I've obviously known most of these guys before. And then we got into it that year. So that was always be a great memory. And again, it was before social media. So I think I have 2 pictures of that trip, me on a bike, right? Nowadays you probably have 500 and a freaking
in the cloud,
like following you and the video been made of it. But it was authentic. It was fun back then.
Yeah.
It was I remember a quick story on that, but I remember we were, always you had the big group and then it was smaller groups. And one time it was probably 10 of us and it was Arlen Ness leading the group, right? And at one point it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was maybe like 2 bikes behind Arlen. And I saw him looking next to a guy riding next to him and he did one of these. And that was Arlen's way of showing the group, we're going to stop for a drink, we're going to have some beer or a martini. And you're just like, you're behind that and you're like, your ass hurts, right? You've been on the bike for a day and your leg hurts because you've been sitting on it like a madman. And then they'll put the smile on your face, you're back behind and you're like, man, they got to figure it out,
That's wild.
That
every route from basically San Francisco up, I mean, even if you go straight across 80, it's still nice. You still have some cool stuff,
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, right?
I wish, I've been working with the Ness family for many years. I'm very close with them and very, love that brand, love that family. So they always ask, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can swing getting all the way to Cali to then come back up. It's just like, it's hard.
Do it.
I want to, yeah.
Do it, Do it. You will not regret it. You will look back and it will be one of your best memories. I promise you that. It's just
100%.
fun. It's a great group, but it's just so much fun riding, from the West Coast Sturges. To me, that was always a highlight. Once you get to Sturges, it's great, right? But then you get pulled in 100 different directions.
I think it'd be cool to do it with, because I've ridden a lot of this country, and not to say that to brag or anything. I'm just saying, I've got to experience it all. But it's when you change the bike and the people you do it with, that changes the entire experience. 100%. So I think going up there and riding with them on their ride and just seeing how they do it and what the vibe is, that would be such a unique way to kind of experience all that stuff. So
it's all of that, and it's for me, some of these rides I associate with meeting some of my best friends for the first time.
Yeah.
I got Maury and Terry and Click, who passed away back then, a few years back. But I remember, riding into Sun Valley, and we hit the hotel. We were exhausted, right? I mean, again, on the chopper for freaking 10, 12 hours. And there's these guys, and they're wearing yellow shirts. So I'm like, okay, it's part of the tribe, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, hey, you guys want a crown and 7? Like, yeah, right. And that was just the first conversation, right? And they became one of my best friends. I was still in Europe at that point, and I invited them to a dealer show, right? We had the Custom Chrome Europe dealer show.
Yeah.
We had the European Championship of Custom Bike Building. So it was a big deal, right? And after that thing and after the ride and get to know, but I'm like inviting him and, hey, you got to come to that show, and forgot about it, right?
Yeah.
Sure enough, these guys a day before the show, they're like, hey, we're coming, you know that.
Oh, shit.
So they stayed there. I mean, this is just friendship and a connection that you take, away from doing that, and it'll be with you for your whole life, And there's not a lot of other things in motorcycling that get you there, I think, So
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
to do it, you will have a good time, and you will meet people that might end up being your best friends.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would take. It'll happen. I'm for sure going to end up doing that stuff. But man, I think it's been cool, man. I'm glad that you guys have moved to Texas. I think it's crazy that you guys came to America, and I remember watching this stuff happen, and now I'm able to, begin a friendship and whatnot with you guys, have you on the podcast and everything, and get some connection to this thing I used to see through Pinterest and other apps back in the day, these bikes I used to find and shit. It's cool, man. I'm glad you guys chose Texas, and great products. I've always loved everything, and I do appreciate you coming out to do this, man.
Sure. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited to be here, and it's one of those stories that you never know. Life is full of choices, and now we're in Texas and we're loving it.
Yeah, I feel bad though, because I kind of told you about all the wild shit we used to do in here, and this has been super proper.
Yeah, where's the drink?
Yeah, I know, and
I'm still here.
yeah, there's a bunch of half-drank whiskey bottles over there, and it's just I don't know. I guess I'm trying to grow up or some shit. I don't know what's going on, but I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, and yeah.
You got it. Thanks for having us.
All right, man.